I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
And this is Dead Cross Church of the Motherfers. You're gonna have to do something about that in the title. Okay. This is probably a Christian's react to Church of the Motherfers.
Probably. Shout out to the big homie Jay, Dispirited, who picked this. Again, don't forget he's got his little Teespring shop. Actually, it's not little anymore. It's growing quite a bit.
It's big time now.
Yeah, he's got a lot of different shirts in there. So the link for his shop will be in the description of this video. You can get the core shirts there and, you know, an array of other things.
Yeah, we don't get anything for that. That's their own thing. But that's what happens, ladies and gentlemen. The core is a Patreon alliance. So $1 at the gate, you get locked into an alliance. A recruiter goes to try to recruit you. You pull your points together, you get songs reviewed, all that jazz. Mm-hmm. What Jay selected though wasn't even that option. This was the Fast Pass option, where he gets to jump right to the head of the line for his song request. It's $125. If you've done it 3 times at the $125 rate, you get sent down to the original $75 rate. If you did the $75 rate 3 times and you stay grandfathered at the $75 rate, which is the situation that Jay is in, which is also the situation that a couple other people are about to begin. So congrats to those guys. And so here we go. Also, for timely topical political commentary, you can hit us up at Middle America with Vin and Sori.
Links are in the description to everything that we're talking about. You can go on Patreon if you want to do the Fast Pass option, or you can actually go through PayPal, and it's even faster because Patreon's going to make you wait until the beginning of the next month to take the money from you, and then your song gets put on the list. So if you want to push that forward a little faster, then you go to PayPal, and that's vinandsorimerch@gmail.com. Links in the description. Ready, babe?
Yep.
And
go! The influence of a man in his work has never yet grown great without his blind pupils. That's Nietzsche. To help a perception to achieve victory often means merely to unite it with stupidity so intimately that the weight of the latter also enforces the victory of the former. And there you go. Shout out to the big homie, Mr. Nietzsche. I think a coyote is isn't one of these people that helps people across the border? Is that what they
I
call
just
them?
know a dog, the type of cross between a dog and a wolf, I think.
Pretty sure that's what they call them, a coyote. You take people from the border. You know, these people. I think some of them end up like trafficking people and stuff like that. Let's see, these guys are from Southern California, so it would make sense. You know what I mean?
But it's not about the border. It's about the Catholic Church.
It's a colloquial Mexican-Spanish term referring to the practice of people smuggling across the U.S.-Mexico border. ICE defines smuggling as the importation of people into the United States involving deliberate invasion of immigration law. This offense includes bringing human beings into the country.
But that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, depending on your views on it. It doesn't mean you're
but
trafficking.
sometimes they get caught up with traffickers and all that. But I mean, I hear what you're saying. But obviously, the context here looks like they've got a... Yeah, see right there. Officials have called it both trafficking and smugglers sometimes called coyotes. So, it's also a term used for, traffickers across the border. Which, maybe they're making a correlation between the coyotes and the priests in the sense of, doing that to kids or whatnot. This whole Tara Reid situation has really uncovered how sexual predators are able to slip under the radar. Because it's been extremely interesting watching the Me Too people, the feminists supposedly like Alyssa Milano, who were moralizing all over the place with Kavanaugh, saying all types of craziness. And at the time we had no analogous comparative, so we were like, well, I mean, this is how they really feel. Then on comes Tara Reid, who happens to be speaking against their guy, who has more demonstrable evidence than Miss Blasey Ford ever did. And literally all the things that the pro-Kavanaugh people were saying, these people are saying. Well, not the fact... Well, the other thing is that the Kavanaugh people had 2 recantations. 2 people admitted that they lied. All the people she said at the party said they weren't at the party. But my point is to just say, this is an across-the-board phenomenon where everybody can kind of, Biden to me looks like the sort of the creepy uncle that everybody knows that there's something wrong with him, and then you hear a credible case against him, but you don't want to smear the family name, so you're not going to say anything. You're just going to keep all your kids away from him at the family gathering at the pool party. Yeah. You're going to make sure there's no girls alone with him, but you're not going to go out and agree with the person that's destroying your family name. And I just, it's definitely been a gut punch when you look at, because I was under the impression that this was almost divided between party and theological lines. Like, I was under the impression that right-wingers, whether politically or theologically or socially, would always victim blame and take the side of the man, and that left-wingers would always accuse a guy without recourse and take the side of the woman because, it's all believe women and yada, yada, yada. And this whole situation had demonstrated that's not the case at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen some pretty horrible articles about Tara Reid. But it's all from leftists.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the worst part about it was she went to the Time's Up people, and the Time's Up people were specifically designed to go after rich, powerful white men who had all this privilege, and they wouldn't take her case. So to me, it's like, when I first... We're Protestants, but I, especially when this subject comes up, I never separate ourselves from Roman Catholics because it just feels like a cop-out. So while I know that every group does this, every group has nasty people who they will then go to protect and shame and victim blame the actual survivor. They all do it. So whether it's the church, left wing, right wing, conservative family, liberal family, every group does it because, what's one person versus the family name, or what's one person versus whatever justification people have for it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you why it's worse when it's a member of God's church. It's because you're saying you are the representative of God. You're saying that you are the keeper of God's, word or whatever, and you're passing it on to the next generation.
Yeah, and you're saying, obviously we don't see God face to face.
Right.
So a lot of times the religious leaders are looked at as, okay, this is how God would respond in a certain situation. And they're looking at it as, okay, this is the closest to God I'm going to get, or whatever. And then they experience this trauma at the hands of that person.
Right. That's why it's worse.
Oh, God.
That's the reason it's worse.
Yeah.
And it then becomes even more worse when the church, lay people, regular people, consolidate around the powerful person and continue this culture of silence to the survivor. That makes it even more worse because the church is supposed to be this set-apart community, yada, 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 and yet here we are, harboring sexual predators. And so that's, a lot of religious people cannot understand why there are criticisms like this, especially in our current zeitgeist, especially, what's happening right now, where it's like, now I'm like, okay, there's no group that will not do this. Every group on the planet will do this. Forget it. And, there are, believe you me, there are consequences to telling sexual predators that they don't have a safe zone in a church. I mean...
Oh, I know, yeah.
Because what happens? There's this sort of we're not supposed to judge anybody thing, right? So on the one hand, people have this understanding that, well, you're not supposed to judge, you're supposed to accept everybody, come as you are, yada, yada, yada. Okay, well, what if the person's a child molester? Then we're not supposed to judge them? We're supposed to accept that too? Come as you are? You like little girls? Come on down. See, this is where... people love to throw out these things when it comes to religion, and it's a very feel-good type of thing. But then when it intersects with the real world and the darkness of the human heart, some of that stuff just tends to fall apart.
Yeah.
Right? So we were in a situation in a church where the leadership was like, we were dead in the middle of the inner city of the area, and the place was, look, I had a conversation with the FBI about our particular area. Because we really took it seriously because of all the, there was a lot of these guys were child predators in that area. And anytime you're in the inner city, you're very vulnerable. A lot of these people don't have access to the normal apparatus that the rest of us do. They don't know to go to the police or anything like that. And so it was running rampant. And the guy in the FBI told me, your area per capita is in the top 3. In the United States of America. So
and we didn't realize it, at first. Everybody was people were showing up, and then we had other people from within the city that was saying, hey, that person is on the registry. And we were like, oh, really? And then we look, oh my gosh, and that one. Why is there so many right here in this? But basically what ends up happening is because they are being separated from the community because of their actions, they all group together because they understand each other, and You know,
Sure.
maybe they want to sin together too. I'm not saying that that's not an issue, but also like just that like.
Well, those are the only people that would even congregate with them. Mm-hmm. Like even on the street, there was a street code, and you know, people that hurt kids to that degree. Like, and see, the other thing was so. Long story short, you know, the leaders of the church said, "Okay, well, we're not going to have anybody on the sex offender registry in our church because there was no children's church." Because it was basically
the church was an old bar.
It was a bar.
So it was just like one big room.
So it was one big room, and there was no way to segregate kids from adults.
But
and
we told them, we'll meet with you separately.
Yeah.
We're not meeting at the church. We'll meet with you at, you know, a restaurant or whatever and hang out with you.
We'll go to your place.
Whatever, yeah.
They didn't want that.
Go.
They wanted to be able to show up. And the guy kept talking about discrimination. You're discriminating against me. What if I said you couldn't come because you were black? I was like, you got the wrong one, man. I don't really care.
Black isn't a crime.
Well,
Or
I mean,
thin.
obviously in some states it obviously is, right? Yeah. But I said, yeah, man, whatever. I said, yeah, we're absolutely discriminating. It's 100% true. We will meet you at your place. He didn't want any parts of that. I said, okay. Well, you can't be around here.
He came back and keyed one of the cars.
Yeah.
But it wasn't ours, it was somebody else's.
He was following people. He was following people trying to intimidate him. Sori tore her Achilles, so I was in the hospital taking care of her. And he took that as an opportunity to go and mess up. You know, one of those guys had a gun. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The dude that...
I know.
That's one of those things where, like, people have no idea who they're dealing with.
I know.
You know, but thankfully, because maybe, inshallah, because of... the teaching he was receiving, he didn't cap him, but
We should have never let him come in with a weapon.
Yeah, but
at the time I wasn't a pacifist.
he was a leader though.
Yep.
Like there was like one guy that was anti-gun. The other leaders were like guns everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
And the one guy had a rifle at his house. Another
Have it at your house, but
he had the thing in his car. I was like, yo, man. These guys are like built for war. They're like, oh, you know, they were suburban kids. They'd never been in the inner city before, so he would show up with his little. But yeah. But here's the kicker. So we told dude like, yeah, you can't be here, and then another group of people basically brought him in to their church, and they were making this big deal about how progressive they were and how non-judgmental they were and yada yada yada. And I went to them and I said, hey, are you gonna tell the parents that this fucking guy, because this is not like I was 19 and she was 14 but she said she was 17. It wasn't one of those situations. He was 30 something and the girl was 11, or if that.
Is that the one she was asleep?
Yeah. So, but they made this big deal about how progressive they were.
But they wouldn't tell the parents.
They wouldn't tell the parents.
That's wrong.
And I said,
but he's not even supposed to be there, right? Or is it different because it's a church?
Well,
because they're not supposed to be within a certain...
Church is an exception. And a lot of these guys, a lot of these predators know that. So I'm not speaking on the Catholics thing because we're not Catholics. I've never had experience in Catholic church. But I have experience in Protestant churches. And that's what happened. They fucking moved this guy over, didn't tell anybody. And they're like, I said, you're not telling the parents? They're like, no. I'm like,
that is so wrong.
You don't think these people deserve to know that? And the guy goes, well, we're keeping an eye on him. And I say, well, okay, so what happens when somebody trying to do the right thing as a Christian invites this guy over to dinner?
Right. I remember you said that.
Yeah. No fucking answer, that guy. And I love the guy I was talking to. To this day, I love the person I was talking to that I was saying, how could you not let the parents... Like, I love this dude. I always will. Mm-hmm. But, the whole slew of them, they were all wrong on it. The whole slew of them. One of the idiots called me. He called me up from fucking North Carolina. He was basically like, it's the parents' job to watch their kids. I'm like, it's the inner city, you fucking idiot. Like, these parents are selling these kids for a hit of crack. What the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. I was like, you know what, man? I was like, I can't talk. I couldn't even talk to this guy anymore. Long story short, the guy that the awesome progressive church that took it, he got caught in the library with one of the kids, and then they booted him out.
Hopefully nothing happened. As far as we know, nothing happened. He was there. But geez.
And to this moment, these people still don't know. It's fucking crazy, man. I don't.
But I don't know if nothing happened, because the thing is, in those situations, stuff happens fast. And something
Correct.
could have happened to that little girl and nobody knew that it
Correct.
happened. And the little girl, you know, a lot of times they don't talk. So
And you know, we were outside one time, and one of the leaders explained this policy to some folks on the street. And
a lot of times people don't talk because they feel like it's their fault. There is
100%.
nothing that you could have done that could have made that your fault.
Yep.
If you were molested or you were taken advantage of as a child and it was a grown person, there is nothing, absolutely nothing that would have made that your fault. They were the adult and they should have handled that situation as an adult, and that should have never happened to you. You should have no guilt because of that.
even and this is something that never gets talked about. Even if it felt good, it doesn't mean that you wanted it, that you created the situation,
Right.
or that it's your fault.
Right.
It's just that evil motherfucker understands biology and how the
Right.
human body works. That's
Right.
not on you. Now, a lot of people are scared to say that because, you
Yeah.
know, whatever.
No, it's
you know.
important to say.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we've been in bunches of conversations with people that, you know, they felt good about it, but then they felt so horrible about it.
They felt physically
And-
good about
right.
it. And emotionally, they didn't even have
Right.
the words to talk about why they felt
Yeah.
something was wrong. I mean, you're 4, 5, 6 years old.
Or 11 or whatever. It doesn't
11
matter.
Years old. Correct.
You're a child. You're
Correct.
a child. End of the day. That's it. You're not responsible. It's not your fault.
It's the adults.
You didn't do anything.
100%.
It's just that person was evil and they exercised their evil on you, and that was wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if no one ever told you that that was wrong, and I'm sorry it happened to you.
And it's a horrible thing because, so when we were out there, we explained our policy, and we were like, street people are going to be mad at us, da 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 da.
Yeah.
They were like, you guys are the only ones
Yep.
that have that policy. And you guys are the only place we'll ever go. Because all the other ones,
Yep.
they were like, yo, this guy's on, and they wouldn't do anything. And it's just like, what the hell is happening? Like, what is going on? Like,
You know-
it's the church is supposed to be a refuge for sheep, not fucking wolves. And a guy puts his hands on a child, he's a fucking wolf that you need to protect the sheep from, but it's backwards.
We're not saying that that person should have no help.
No!
We will help you somewhere else.
I'm not saying you're even irredeemable.
Right.
But I'm just saying if I'm gonna triage and I'm gonna say this is gonna be, because if you harbor a sexual predator, like a known sexual predator, then you are essentially telling the parents with kids or the kids in the area, too bad, you know, you don't have priority. So somebody's going to get sacrificed. So what I'm saying is, if you're in a situation where somebody has to get sacrificed, I'm taking the kid 110% of the time.
We're going to protect the kid and
but there's a
sacrifice
very,
the adult.
very strange protection of particularly male sexual predators. It's very strange in the church. On, you know, we saw that situation. There was another situation with the, you know, marital rape situation, and they did the same thing. It's like, wow, man, like these people are, this is a strange group of people, bro. This is very, very strange. Very, very strange. But so I understand the anger in this song, you know, and I understand, like, you know, it was a pretty blasphemous moment with the nun. But I was thinking to myself, like,
I didn't understand how that fit in with the song.
well, you know, just sexual perversion, you know, because the priests are using their basically Christ.
Yeah, but you don't usually hear of the nuns.
Well, I think they're just saying the whole system is corrupt from top to bottom.
Yeah. I mean, there were. Do you remember that documentary we saw? And
Oh, yeah.
the nuns were participating in putting
Oh,
those girls in
oh,
the
yeah.
situation. So
Oh, yeah. And again, I know that the vast majority of priests in the Catholic Church and the vast majority of nuns in the Catholic Church are well-meaning people who would rather die than do something to harm a child. I understand that, but it can't be denied that.
it happened, and it got hid.
And not only
Move
did it
those
get,
people to
it'd be one.
locations
You know, it'd be one
And
thing
let them
where,
continue on in that evil behavior.
you know, look, man, it'd be one thing where it's like, I know this guy is in some, you know, organized crime syndicate, and I say, hey, Mr. Organized Crime Person, that guy over there, Father Pachula, if he disappeared and nobody saw him again, I'd give you a plenary indulgence. And then the guy disappears. Like, that's one way to hide it, right? But, and that would still be an un-Christ-like way of hiding it. But I would say, okay, I understand that. That's corrupt. You don't want the church to get a bad name, so you just orchestrated for this guy to get disappeared. You know, like it's like
move him to another location.
It's like Epstein, right? Like everybody's like Epstein didn't kill himself, but nobody feels bad for him. We all know that he got, but nobody feels bad for him because we all know what he was a part of. Mm-hmm. So like what I'm saying is like
the only reason I'm bothered a little bit about it because I don't like hearing people getting killed, but at the same time, I'm not bothered by it because I am bothered by it because I wanted to hear his testimony because I felt like he was going to squeal.
We wanted final confirmation of the you know who I'm talking about. Rhymes with Schminton. So like. So what I'm saying is that would be wrong and unchristlike, but at the same time, I don't think anybody would blame them. Mm-hmm. I think God would forgive them. Mm-hmm. But that's not what they did. They moved the guy around and sent him to another parish with a new slew of kids. That's the thing that gets me. It's like the most stand-up thing to do would be to say, this guy is a predator and he hurt 5 kids and we're helping these 5 kids and we're going to defrock him and send him to prison and he's going to spend, 18 trillion years in purgatory doing satisfacio forever. Okay, that would be the most stand-up Christ-like thing to do. The next thing to do with any sort of integrity would be to go to your local hitman and say, hey, we'll give you plenary indulgence if this guy disappears. Mm-hmm. The worst thing you could possibly do is send this guy, and that's what they did. JP2 did it. Even the current Pope had his hands dirty in that nonsense. So it's indefensible, and I think, as long as Christians keep saying, well, our numbers are better than the baseball coach at your little league, or they say that they're better than politicians, like, until we figure out that we're supposed to operate on a higher standard, things are never going to get better. And the other thing I was thinking to myself was, like, I understand, especially, like, our Catholic friends are going to be extremely bothered, especially on the woman angle. What the nun was doing. And I'm thinking to myself, why is that action more blasphemous than 2 priests who supposedly occupy persona Christi beating the hell out of each other? Why is the violence not blasphemous at all, but what the nun was doing sexually, that's like the big giant blasphemy thing? But you don't look
for me, when I see...
You don't look at the 2 priests in the ring...
priests in the ring together, I'm like, well, they both had it coming to them. And it looked like it was the same guy.
Yeah, but it doesn't look blasphemous. Like, people would never say that's blasphemy to portray the priest, beating the hell out of each other. But they would say what the nun was doing was blasphemous.
Yeah, because it's communion.
And what I'm saying is both of them are blasphemous because a person is more sacred to God than the communion elements.
Yeah.
So, but it's just, evangelicals and Christians are so obsessed with sex and sexuality that's the ultimate blasphemy. But 2 guys beating the hell out of each other, beating their heads in, not blasphemous at all.
Way more shocked by the 2 priests beating each other up. I didn't like that. They were beating each other up in front of children.
But you'd never call it blasphemous.
No, I wouldn't.
That's what I'm saying. What do you give the song?
I don't think I can rate it.
Okay. That's fair. Sometimes you don't rate the song because it kind of cheapens the message to do so. So do what you will with it. Take care of each other. Vin out.
Sorry out.
Gone. Get help if you're in trouble, by the way. You know what I mean?
Just